Social media usage has been growing. In fact, it's been growing since the beginning of time. I would probably attribute the majority of social media growth to the invention of and the rising prevalence of access to smartphones. If you're watching this video here, go ahead and give me a like if you remember the invention of the smartphone. And if you don't, then you owe me a subscribe because you're probably a teenager who has only ever had access to a smartphone. And that juxtaposition right there is the inherent tension that exists between teenagers and parents who are navigating a brand new landscape. And so in this video, what I want to do, titled Building Real Relationships in the Digital Age, we're going to define what social media even is. Everyone kind of carries in their own built-in and baked-in connotations of it, but what is it really? I'm also going to share with you some real tips to building relationships in the digital age, and spoiler, some of those tips are actually going to be leaning into tech as a tool to enhance and build some of those relationships. And make sure that you stick around to the very end of the video because I have for you a phone-free activity guide. And what this is going to do is not only give you ideas of phone-free activities that you can do, but it's going to help you navigate some of those conversations, especially with getting some of your friends maybe on board to do an event that is more phone-free, even though they may be a little bit more drawn to and addicted to their phones. And it's also going to help give you a framework as a family how to also implement some of those events. Welcome, my friends, to the Hybrid Ministry Show. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Hybrid Ministry Show. If you and I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Nick Clason. I've been a youth pastor and in youth ministry for 14, going on 14 and a half, soon to be 15 years. And if you're watching here on YouTube, you'll see a chart that defines social media usage from the beginning of 2012 all the way through when this data was captured in 2023. And I just want to let you know that if you're not watching on YouTube, or if you're in a podcast catcher, wherever you're listening, there are chapters included so that you can kind of hop around and skip around to the parts of this video that kind of make the most sense to you. But as we're looking at this chart, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're just listening to me describe it via your audio podcast feed, you'll see that in January of 2012, there were just over 1,400 users of different social accounts. Fast forward to January of 2023, and as you can imagine, that number has ballooned up to 4,760, and it's probably assuredly greater than 5,000 now at this point as we have surpassed into 2025 and beyond. Well, what exactly is, and I think this is important, right? And so like if you're a chapter person, you may have skipped this one, like the definition of social media, but I think it's important for us to take a quick step back, peel back the curtain a little bit, and really try and understand what social media not only is, but where it's coming from and its inherent reason for even existing in the first place. And so I tried my best. I looked across some websites. I used some AI, but at the end of the day, the definition that I sort of came to and used some different articles for that are linked down below if you want to read them is this: social media is online communication designed to create networks and communities where ideas, information, messages, photos, etc. can be freely shared. And if you think about what's baked into that definition is the desire for a lot of different things: communication, messages, photos, ideas, right? It has evolved to a spot where it's more than just a photo sharing avenue or a video sharing avenue. You can communicate ideas, you can communicate information, you can create networks, you can find people, but at the base of it all is social is what? It's social, right? At least in its original iteration and its original inception, the idea and the purpose behind social media was creating community and networks and connections where you could keep up with people. Many of us would trace social's roots back to the invention of Facebook and what Zuckerberg did on Harvard's campus. But believe it or not, social existed even before that. And I would say you could kind of trace some of its ideas back to the 90s when blogs were invented. Blogs kind of planted this idea in the world's heads that individual people outside of the traditional news media outlets and news sources, that they could post whatever and whenever they wanted and receive feedback in live time without having to go through that pesky use, like I said, of like that third party. And so if you're watching here on YouTube, if you're not, linked down below in the show notes, hybridministry.xyz/135. I used this article from broadbandandsearch.net. It's an article, and what it did is it traced some of the very original social networks. So in 1997, some of you might not even know this. If you don't, give me a like, but 6 degrees was what this article, Broad and Search, what they defined as the very first social platform. And then following that, in 2002, Friendster and MySpace and LinkedIn all were invented. Then Twitter was in 2006, and then Facebook finally came and burst on the scene in, I believe it was 2004, when we officially got the launch of Facebook. And as you know, it originally launched only as an exclusive opportunity on the Harvard campus, but it soon expanded beyond that. And by 2008, Facebook overtook MySpace as the most visited website in the world. 2010 is when Instagram launched, and that's actually when I dove in to being a youth pastor. And so I always say I was an Instagram baby as a youth pastor. And so I've been around as a youth pastor as long as Instagram has been around. And Instagram launched originally as sort of just a photo sharing app. It was meant to be a little bit more artsy than maybe what was going on over on Facebook. And then 2011, Snapchat came, and Snapchat has ushered in a lot of different features that different platforms, especially with the idea of like stories, have kind of adopted and made a very like big staple on their platform. Especially I'm looking at you, Instagram and Facebook. And then 2016, TikTok was invented, and in 2020, a few years after the invention of TikTok, it took the world by storm and frankly ushered in a new social era. Give me a like if you know that as you've watched videos on TikTok recently, do you even recognize or know the people that have posted the videos that you're watching? That's the new era, right? Social in its original iteration was meant to be about connections and networks, but now it's much more about maybe entertainment, sharing ideas, or even just like humor, right? And laughing and sharing things that cause people to laugh. And like I said, you can draw a thread all the way back, especially to the origin of some of these, to the idea behind friendship and community. Speaking of tracing a thread all the way back, again, if you're watching here on YouTube, you'll see another chart from that Broadband and Search article, and it just lays out the history of social platforms and social networks. Go ahead and take a screenshot of that, and you can study that later on in your time. But what I want to move on to is I want to kind of ask this question: how can we build relationships in a digitally based world? There's a video that I came across during kind of like Christmas break and New Year's time, and it shows, and I'll link it here on screen. You can go ahead and take a look at it, but it shows how humans have spent their time over the course of history. In like the 40s and 50s, it was primarily family, and then quickly friends took over that top spot on that kind of bar graph. But then as soon as the internet existed, boom, it skyrocketed to the top. And what we know is that while in its original form, social was created for human ideas and connection, it has sort of supplanted what it was originally brought into meaning for, right? It was meant for us to connect better, but while there's still a possibility of that happening, just as well as I, that some of us can spend mindless amounts of time, energy, hours, and effort on social media if we're not intentional. So how do we get back to the roots of what we want? Not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, getting rid of phones and screens and social altogether, but using it in a way that's hygienic in a 2025, always on, digitally focused world, I have 3 tips on how you can build relationships in a digital world. And the first is so simple, right? It's just put the phone down, right? And that might seem so obvious and that might seem so basic to you. But the reason why this is important is because you need to understand that our phones and social and some of these apps are intentionally designed to release a chemical called dopamine. I'm sure you've heard this before. When you get a notification or when you doom scroll, they're built to be intentionally addictive. And so while is good and while there can be value behind it, and as youth pastors and parents, we know we can use it even as a tool in our own lives, in our own ministries, in our own families, we also know that they're built to be intentionally addictive. So create a space where you can learn how to put the phone down. In fact, if you go back to the very first episode linked in the playlist linked right here at the top of the screen about detoxing in a quote always on tech-filled world, I give some tips, and there's even a worksheet in that video about getting rid and creating kind of phone-free environments. I believe if you look at the worksheet in that one, I have linked like a phone jail. What if you did something so dramatic in your own life or your own family where you created like a phone jail or a phone locker, kind of so to speak, so that you could put it down and you could force yourself to not go back and pick it up. In fact, I made a New Year's resolution this year that when I get home from work, I want from the time I get home from work until bedtime with my kids, I want it to be phone free. Like I want to put my phone down and I want to live my life. And I host a podcast called the Hybrid Ministry Show. I'm all about digital. I'm all about technology, but I also don't want technology to run me. I want it to be a part of my life that's useful and meaningful and that I use, but I don't want it to run me. And so I want to put my phone down and I want to live my life with my family. The second idea I have for you is that while you should put your phone down, I'm speaking to those of you who are kind of those hard chargers, get rid of it. The second piece is tech can enhance relationships. So while you should put your phone down so that you can live your life, so that you can enhance those relationships, which is what social was built on foundationally in the first place, tech is a tool to be used. Just minutes ago, all right, I'm late at night, just got done watching a basketball game. Shout out to the Oklahoma City Thunder. 13-game win streak, longest in franchise history. I was texting my friend in Minnesota, hours away, and we're texting about sports and basketball and life. I haven't seen him in person in months, but our relationship still exists. We send memes to each other and reels, and we text each other, and we'll call each other, and we'll chat through life and monumental moments. Tech can still enhance and keep a relationship going, right? I think about group chats. I even think about silly things like sharing memes and reels. I think that's a way in today's day and age, in 2025 and beyond, that can be a love language, so to speak. I have a resident now who was off social media because he was trying to focus more time on his schoolwork, and I would screenshot or screen record reels or memes of things. He's a big office guy, and we would kind of connect on those, and I would send those to him in text, and he'd be like, "Thank you for knowing and noticing that I'm not on social, and for sending those to me so that I can actually see these things," right? It's still a way to connect. Doesn't matter the medium. It just is a way for us to kind of share some things, ideas, and laugh together. And so that's where this whole idea of hybrid comes in. Responsible usage. Put it down, but understand that it can still be a tool. The third idea I have for you is create rules for yourselves, or perhaps if you're a parent, a teenager, if you're a youth pastor, this is where I want to encourage you to maybe download and share this resource with some of your parents about what are some of the rules that you can help your teenagers and their parents create for themselves and create for their families. Like I said, I want to try to challenge myself to go phone free from when I get home from work until my kids go to bed. I don't know what those rules are, but let bake some of those in. You know what? Link down below in episode 131, hybridministry.xyz/131. I interviewed my friend Ronald, who is host of the Middle School Ministry podcast, but he also is a dad to middle schoolers, and he had some fantastic ideas and some fantastic tips about how you can implement this idea of digital to your children, to your kids in a meaningful way, but also in a way that is going to help them kind of earn the responsibility of having tech and phones and digital. And so I can't give you like a one size fits all rule. I can, but I don't think that that's wise. I think you need to lean in and kind of learn and discern what is needing to go on in your family and with you in particular. And so while you may be I don't want a smartphone at all, I want a dumb phone only, that can be your rule, but don't make that the rule for everybody. Others, it might be like, hey, I just want to limit my usage. I want to put, timers on my apps. I want to whatever. That's where in, episode 132, I laid out the digital detox kind of like ideas, and it comes with some just ideas of rules and maybe some things that you can create for yourself, or that you and your teenager can kind of work together and create for yourself. But if the whole goal, right? Like if we said the whole goal of social in its original form was connection to humans, maybe, just maybe the phone usage, screen usage has gone a little bit out of balance and has become a little bit more than we ever sort of bargained for. And so that's why I created this screen-free guide, a way to encourage ways to have screen-free or phone-free times with friends, and helping kind of facilitate that for your middle schooler or your high schooler, and even encouraging them how to kind of go about that and even get that kind of conversation started. And also, maybe not just for friends, but also for you as a family, right? And maybe while we might be frustrated as parents or as guardians or even as youth pastors with our teenagers' usage and maybe even dependence on technology, maybe we have to take a good hard look at ourselves. And maybe they're modeling their usage after us, or at least they're seeing us maybe not be as mindful about it as maybe we hope to be. So that's going to be linked down below. Again, if you're a parent, youth pastor, whatever, I hope that you grab it, use it, send it, share it with a friend. But I just want to encourage you to help create more opportunities to build real relationships in this digital age and in this cell phone era. Thank you, as always, for being here. Don't forget to stick around, subscribe. We'll have all kinds of other episodes like this throughout the rest of this year. But don't forget to stay hybrid.